Here we are at the Oval. There it is, the exciting evidence. England have beaten Australia by an innings and 94 runs. Australia bowled out for 129, and so England have regained the Ashes by 3 tests to 1. Let us gently go through the events of the day. The forecast wasn't too good. We were promised a dry morning, rain by mid or late afternoon, and we hope the England bowlers got the message. We're going to go gently through the wickets that fell today with Ted Dexter and Richie Benaud, and we're not going to give anything away in advance. All right, gentlemen? Right, so here is the first one, 62 for 4, and it was Greg Ritchie. Ted.
Greg Ritchie, he'd been a little out of sorts. He didn't last very long and was the first of Richard Ellison's 4 victims, just chasing an outswinger there. And Paul Downton, who had already put one down, dropping Alan Border, second ball of the day, he snapped it up.
Richie did most of the things right there, but it was in the course of a very good spell of bowling from Ellison. He was moving the ball a considerable amount today, with the breeze slightly changed, coming straight across and assisting his outswing to the right-handers.
Australia set off 161 runs behind, and only 9 runs were added, Richie being out without addition to his overnight score. I might have said that Border, second ball of the day, bowled by Ellison, was put down by Downton on the leg side.
Yes, Downton didn't have a good morning. He actually took 1 or 2 catches, but fairly straightforward ones. He put Alan Border down, and then there was another extraordinary moment when Ian Botham just bowled a ball, quick ball, a little bit down the leg side, and he didn't lay a glove on it, 4 byes.
Botham bowled with a great deal of fire again, didn't he?
Certainly did. Bowled very well, and I thought with great pace again. He's bowled really quick in this match. And I'm not too sure how you would rate him precisely in pace, but he's certainly very, very lively, and he got a lot of bounce as well. But the thing about it was even bounce, which was perfect from the batting point of view. It wasn't one where you get one up round about the shoulder and the other one down round your ankles.
When play resumed, there were really 3 men that England needed to get out. One was, of course, Alan Border, Richie, they got him out, and Wayne Phillips. Here was the second target, as it were.
Downton has caught that quite safely. Both of them getting the ball up quite sharply there to Phillips, but it was fairly short. Once again, it was good, predictable bounce. It's the sort of bounce you get on Australian pitches, and this was closer to an Australian pitch than any I've seen in England in recent years. And the fact that the Australians have missed out with the bat twice shouldn't be taken as any reflection on the pitch. This was a very, very good cricket pitch.
96 for 6, Phillips gone for 10, Botham's 31st wicket in the series, and his 343rd. He's only, what, 12 short of Dennis Lilly now?
Yes, he's had a wonderful series, Ian Botham. I said earlier during the live commentary, it's great to see him really functioning very well in all departments, and a great justification for him taking the winter off from India, because he was a bit of a jaded player against the West Indies. He wasn't as good a cricketer as we know he could be, and he's come back, and particularly to see his bowling back. I think he's always been bowler first, batsman second. It might change eventually, but he's really bowled in his pomp in this series.
Interesting comment there, because at least the Australians can console themselves, Richie. They haven't to put up with a tremendous Botham 100.
No, but he has made all those hundreds in times gone past. It's quite true that he may not have a great batting series behind him, but 4,000 runs and those wickets. Dennis Lilly was a marvellous bowler. When you think that Botham has done things to the point of getting 343, and then he also has the 4,000 runs, it's quite a remarkable performance.
Right.
All that has happened in, what, 8 years?
Amazing. Right. Let's move on then to the next wicket. This was the one, of course, that England wanted. Border played several resounding shots this morning, but Ellison had it.
Well, that was a real triumph for Richard Ellison, and will sort of boost his confidence again, if that's possible, because to draw Alan Border into this kind of shot is quite a feat, because he was half cutting, half pushing, and it was the fact that Ellison had kept the ball in the right place for a long time. And don't forget, just look at this Ian Botham catch again. Hands on knees. All right, it came straight in, but it looked just so safe. He'd caught a wonderful catch already.
114 for 7, Border gone for 58, and provided the weather held, there could only be one result from now on. Right, next man to go was Jeff Lawson.
It's my error. This is the great catch.
No, this is Downton.
So Downton has taken that catch there off Ellison. In the first innings, Lawson was the one who was caught by Botham absolutely brilliantly. Leaping catch with, I think, his left hand. This one, a more straightforward catch. Once again, a fine piece of bowling from Ellison. Lovely piece of outswing there, drawing the batsman into the stroke.
127 for 8. Lawson gone for 7. And do you think after Edgbaston that England can now be absolutely certain that they have got a new, authentic Test match bowler in Richard Ellison?
Well, he's not a new ball bowler. That is the slight problem. I think England want to work with these three, with Taylor, Ellison, Ian Botham opening the batsman. We're talking about West Indies, aren't we?
Right.
You know, hard, pretty flat pitches, not much movement off the seam. I think we need a little bit of swing. Taylor's got a little bit of swing away as well. They all move the ball around and take perhaps one raw quickie, like Lawrence or whoever.
Or Greg Thomas, maybe?
Yes, in case these three don't keep their act together.
What are your thoughts about Ellison, Richie?
I agree entirely with Ted. I don't think he's a new ball bowler. I think he's going to be used as the first change bowler, and I think he will get some swing there. On some of those grounds in the West Indies, there is movement in the air. Barbados, for example, always has a breeze coming across. Antigua, there's only a tiny island, and there's a breeze just prevails there all day long. So there is a bit of movement even with the old ball. I suppose in a way you probably become more of a swerve bowler than a swing bowler out there with the bits of leather hanging off the ball. As long as you've got the seam standing out a little bit and one side of the ball with a bit of shine on, then you can get some movement. I think Ellison will do well. Neil Hawke was one who did well. Bruce Taylor, the New Zealander. There are other fellows of medium pace who have done well. And Trevor Bailey, who did very well. And I can't remember the ground, but I think it was Jamaica where he bowled out.
I think it was.
He bowled out West Indies very, very well.
Right, Ted Dexter jumped the gun a bit on this spectacular Botham catch. We've all done that. This was it, McDermott.
I would have had to have taken off now to catch this one. Ian Botham could wait a lot longer, and he's just plucked that out of the sky. He stands, of course, a couple of yards closer. That's why he has to react so quickly. Perhaps if he stood back with the others, he wouldn't have to go quite so quick, but this was some catch.
Perfectly pitched out swinger once again. It started round about middle and off. By the time it pitched, it was just outside off stump. And that was a match of the catch he took in the first innings to dismiss Lawson.
2 for McDermott, 129 for 9, and we were now down to the final obsequies, provided the weather held. Here is the last wicket, and it's Bennett.
Taylor, the bowler, hasn't had much luck this series. Just nice to see him pick up the last wicket and be the man who took the catch, which won the Ashes.
Murray Bennett, the last man in. Very useful all-rounder in Australia. He'll go back to Australia and set out now to do well against India and New Zealand, but the memories of this match and this series will stay with him and the Australians for quite some considerable time.
So Australia bowled out for 129 at 25 minutes past 12. England by an innings and 94. Let's look at the bowling figures, which make joyful reading.
Yes, those 5 wickets to Ellison were well deserved. He's got a lot of control and good movement of the ball. Ian Botham rocked the boat. He's been bounding in. He's been the one everybody's feared. I think he's helped the others to get the odd wicket. And Taylor eventually at least getting a couple.
And the key to Botham's success there, and possibly England's success, is that he's been averaging a wicket every 5.5 overs. Very good strike rate. Even if he finished up with 2 for 60 off 12 overs, he's still in there with a wicket every 5-6 overs, and that is very, very important at his bowl. Well, I'll be very surprised if all 5 bowlers there, Botham and Taylor and Ellison, Edmonds and Embury, don't go to the West Indies. Taylor would be the only one, I suppose, with a little question mark against him, but I've been impressed by the way he's bowled. He's a good, brisk medium pacer, hits the pitch a little bit and skids, and he moves it away from the bat.
Right, after it was all over, they gathered on the balcony by the committee room for the presentation.
The 2 captains, David Gower and Alan Border. The winning cheque for £5,000 from Cornhill Insurance. The president of the Surrey County Cricket Club now invites Mr. Cecil Burrows to present £5,000 to David Gower.
Gooch, player of the match, Gower, player of the series.
To make his adjudication for the Cornhill player of the match and the player of the series, a warm welcome for that fine player, formerly of England and Glamorgan, Mr. Tony Lewis.
Do you want this in for Tony so we can hear him?
Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to nominate the Cornhill man of the match to the man who batted for a long time, almost faultlessly, and gave England a great start, Graham Gooch.
Tony Lewis presents the magnum of champagne. And now the Cornhill player of the series, once again, Tony.
Well, I think you'll agree with me, ladies and gentlemen, that it's astonishing that 2 captains should play such a prominent part by their own skills as well as by their leadership. Unfortunately, now again, there's only one rule: winning or losing. David Gower.
Jeroboam, the champagne for the player of the series.
David, this has been a really historic day, as it was in 1953. You're looking very pensive. You're looking a bit pensive. You ought really to be very exhilarated, should you not?
I think, yes, Peter, it's safe to say that underneath this pensive exterior is really quite a happy man here. I'm sorry about 1953. I was just a little too young by about 4 years to actually appreciate that, but certainly from my point of view, I'm far happier to be here today than I was this time last year.
I'll come back on that in a moment, if I may. Alan, it's always more difficult for the losing captain to talk on these occasions, but you've got a lot of friends here.
Well, I thought thank you.
David, I've not heard such an ovation for a touring captain ever.
Well, I think, yes, to be fair, Alan fully deserves it. it typifies, I think, the way this series has been played and the spirit that's been shown throughout the entire 6 matches, the friendship that we have off the field, at least for the Australians, and I'm glad the crowd have appreciated that.
Right, now.
Well, as David said, the series was a fantastic one. I think cricket was the winner, even though England have come out 3-1 on top. I think it was a justifiable result. England started to put holes in our batting over the last few Test matches, and we succumbed to the pressure that they applied to us, and they fully deserved the 3-1 result. But it was a really great series.
What do you see, David, as the turning point in the series?
I think, obviously, the last Test match at Edgbaston, where we managed to clutch the victory there in spite of the weather. I think that put enough pressure on in our favour for this match here, just to keep the screws turned and to make sure the Ashes didn't suddenly slip back towards Australia again.
Do you see it the same way, Alan?
Well, the start of our demise was probably Manchester, where we luckily got out with a draw there. And then the England side started to play very, very good cricket from that point on, and we were always struggling. But certainly Edgbaston, it looked as though we were going to get out again with the draw, and England managed a fitting result there and have carried on here at the Oval. So I think it was probably a little bit earlier than David mentioned. It was probably in Manchester where things started to go a bit astray for us.
David, it's a funny old game, isn't it? You were swamped by the... You were swamped by the...
Just going down.
Swamped by the West Indies last year. Tide turned in India. You were struggling to get runs in May in wet weather, and everything's gone right, hasn't it, for a long time?
Well, yes, actually, as the gentleman downstairs has just said, history sums that up. I mean, I think we all know very well that this game has very many ups and downs, whether they be personal or as regards sides. And you just accept the good times and enjoy them, and the bad times you just try and forget. You play through them looking for the good times again. So we're on a good time now. I'm delighted, very, very happy indeed. And I'm just looking forward to enjoying it now for the next 3 or 4 hours this afternoon somewhere.
One last question, David. What about the West Indies in January?
Well, yes, I mean, I'm sure they'll be quaking in their boots at the moment. Yes, once we've finished enjoying this little victory, we'll turn our minds to that very seriously, of course, and set about picking a side to do the job. Obviously, it's going to be a fairly hard task there. They've not been beaten too many times recently at home, let alone abroad. And, well, we'll just set our minds out to try and do something about that.
Alan, what's your winter going to be, your summer, Australian summer?
Well, we go back and obviously a bit of rebuilding to do. We play the New Zealanders and the Indians at home, and hopefully that'll see better times for our side there.
And we look forward to seeing you next summer here with Essex.
Yeah, the mighty Essex next year.
And David, I'd like to make a little presentation to you. I have to say that it is a replica, the Ashes. And that's what it's all about. Thank you. The captains have had their say, now let our pundits have theirs on the series as a whole. Ted?
Well, it was very well contested, and I think Australia did wonderfully well to keep themselves sort of in it for quite a long time with that superb win at Lord's. England had never quite settled down at that stage, and then slowly it was a case of England starting to demonstrate as superiority, and eventually they showed that they really were the better side in this victory here at the Oval.
Richie?
Yes, I think I'm just about in line with Alan Border there, where he talks about Old Trafford perhaps being the turning point. But there is one point worth bearing in mind, that the Australians on the Friday night at Edgbaston, when Lawson and Thompson were not out, at something like 346 for 8, they were in the position where you didn't really believe they could possibly be beaten in that match. And all of a sudden they lost Edgbaston and they lost the one here at the Oval. And it's only been a matter of 3 days at Edgbaston and the days here where England have gone right ahead. But I agree with Border that the pressure became intense at Old Trafford. And certainly England asserted their superiority. They finished up not just the better side, but a very, very confident-looking team, and that'll serve them very well when they're going to the West Indies.
With one or more outstanding fast bowlers, England now could be a very, very good side, couldn't they, Ted?
Yes, but I don't think we've got them. That's the problem. I think we want to be very happy with what we've got. And Ian Botham is bowling quick now. There's no question about that. He was genuinely quick. He was probably the quickest on either side in the last 2 Test matches. If he can retain that zest, and he's got a bit of a holiday now, because they don't go to the West Indies until well, late on. They've got 2 or 3 months off now. I mean, he is quick, and the others, I think, must support him, and we've got the spinners as well. I'd like to see this lot of 5 bowlers keeping together, really working for each other. But there's an important point. If we're to do any good against West Indies, we've got to bowl them out twice, and you've got to get enough runs in enough time to have the chance of victory. So far, the West Indies have not agreed to any minimum over limit, and if it suits them, they'll bowl very, very few overs with a lot of quick bowlers, particularly in West Indies. And I'm afraid that David Gower is going to have to take some pretty drastic action about that and force their hand. The only way you can force their hand is to start off one day and bowl at a ridiculously slow rate. Force the hands of the umpires, make them say, you've got to bowl so many overs, and then say, okay, is it the same for the other side? Is it the same for West Indies? Get that agreed, because unless both sides bowl a reasonable number of overs, you're not going to get a sensible series.
How would you like the last word, Richie? You very often do have it.
I can't believe that is so.
Mrs. Benaud doesn't agree.
Well, if there is to be a last word, it is just to say that next year Australia start in against India and New Zealand, and then they have another season, and then England are out there, and Australia will be working very hard between this very moment, having been bowled out for 129 here and losing by an innings at the Oval and losing the Ashes. Australia will be working very hard under Alan Border and the selectors and the other players to make certain when David Gower brings the side out there that it's another tremendous contest.
Finally, let's just talk about the Ashes. I gave David Gower that little replica. There is doubt, isn't there? Because in 1882, the Australians came here to the Oval, humbled England cricket, and Sporting Times of the day came out with an obituary notice which said the body of English cricket is going to be cremated and the Ashes taken to Australia. You take it over from there, Richie.
Well, apparently, all the history says that there was a bale burned by some ladies in Melbourne, one of whom later married Lord Darnley. And recent history tends to say that, in fact, it may not have been a bale. It might have been a ball used at Sir William Clark's place where Lord Darnley used to go down to visit the young lady of his choice. And this seems to be the material that might be in the urn. It doesn't matter very much. Whatever it is it's an object anyway, and it's the one that provides a tremendous amount of enjoyment and aggro and testing time and character building for cricketers from both countries.
We've had our cameras at Lord's, and here it is, Ted, the grey skates through which you've often ventured.
Yes, indeed. Just one point about those Ashes, though. They have been considered sort of priceless and the thing to be played for between England and Australia. And there was a point in this match when skipper David Gower had to really decide whether to go for the Ashes, make sure they were certain, or to go for winning the match. And it's now a professional game, £5,000 to the winner, and he thought, well, we'd better go for those £5,000. Well, he also collected the ashes, so his optimism was well-founded, and he won on all counts.
And that's what this long, old rivalry is all about. Still smiling. Love working with you, Richie. Right. Just to say that on Saturday we shall be in business at Lord's for the final of the NatWest Trophy between Essex and Nottinghamshire, and of course cameras on BBC Two will be covering the John Player. It's a very interesting run-up for the John Player on Sunday. If you'll excuse me, Ted, I've got a little present to make here to Richie. I didn't realise that Spike Milligan was an Australian. If the Poms beat us, for immediate relief, withdraw cork and drink contest. Warm regards, Spike Milligan.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you, Spike. That's absolutely delightful.
I hope you won't regard this as gloating.
I remember in 1953, Peter, I am one who can get back that far, that...
You were, young Benaud on his first tour here.
Indeed.
Yes.
Well, my first tour, and Lindsay Hassett, I seem to remember, lobbed a boot against the clock in those days. In these days, with television and slightly different reporting styles, then that would have been given more publicity than it was at the time. But anyway,
Richie,
cheers.
We feel for you, and may it take the pain away also.
Thank you. And congratulations to everyone. That's quite remarkable. You know what that tastes like? Ashes.
I can't add to that. Let's leave you with one happy man today. Bye-bye.